Welcome to my 3-act math professional development. My name is Patrick DiCaprio. I want to start off with some of my main goals. I wanted to make sure that the professional development was split up into specific content areas. I wanted an aim to give teachers control over what they're creating and also find something that was applicable to their daily classroom, something that wasn't detached, something they could go back to, something they could use in their classroom, and make it beneficial for what they're doing. First, I want to start off with an introduction to Dan Meyer. This is a YouTube video of him explaining the how and why behind his 3-act math method and what his vision is for the mathematics classroom compared to a traditional classroom that maybe was more skill and drill related and not maybe connecting to the real world quite as much. I also have included a link to Dan Meyer's blog, which math teachers upload ideas and lessons, and Dan has actually split this up into different curriculum, and he has created a 3-act math sheet that you can organize by standards and lesson plans and some videos. Not too complete, but still a nice start for teachers that were trying to add a couple lessons. Next up, after they watch the video, they get an introduction. There is a 3-act math pretest. I base this more towards their attitudes. Have you heard of him before? Have you ever taught using this method? Are you happy with the way you currently teach lessons? Some programs, I know the program we're currently using does have a script, although you necessarily don't have to follow it or you can use certain parts of it. And then if you think your problems are real world, do you feel your students are engaged? A lot to do with attitudes and opinions, and then also I wanted to gear what they were thinking about their professional development, what they would change if they had the opportunity, and then how they would teach a lesson about surface area volume of a 3D shape. Then goes into some of the training part, a slideshow with 3-act math. We'll go through this quick. I go through the explanations of what the acts are. I give them pictures, ideas of what makes it different from what their typical textbook is. Comparison here. Dimensions are already given. How many times in the real world do you see a 3D shape that already have the dimensions attached to it? No, you'd actually have to go and measure that. Talk about how to hook students in, talk about the process as far as the middle portion being the opportunity for those students to actually do the work. They get invested. The dimensions aren't there. They have to ask those questions. How long is it? How tall is it? Really get them engaged. And then in Act 3, discuss the work, solutions shown to the class. And Dan Meyer uses a lot of time-lapse photography and videos as payoffs to the initial dilemma. Then there's the adaptation and application portion. Here's a current example from our current textbook. And you can see again, dimensions are provided. They're going from least to greatest. I think it would be nice if you could shift these away for the students and then put them from least to greatest and then talk about their ideas and sort of get them to make their guesses to sort of make them invested in the lesson. And I went through the presentation from one of the creators of this program, and he was talking about Dan Meyer, and he was sort of used his 3-act math method, and I was completely invested in what was going on. I was making guesses. I wanted to be right. I wanted to go see and find out what was right or wrong. It really took me back to a place of joy and fun for mathematics, and I want to be able to shape my classroom like that. So we talk about, can you change the visuals? How would you change this problem that was presented from our textbook? What real-world objects would you be able to use instead of blank cylinders? And let's look at Dan Meyer's video. So he used popcorn here. Popcorn containers. Which container would hold more popcorn? And this is also where you can add in some technology as far as the kids making their guesses. Again, using the visual component, not necessarily that you have to create your own visual component, but using that visual component to try to get students to jump in and make guesses and invest into the class and be very, very engaged. Could you use different sizes of household glasses? You know, which glass would you pick if you were at a friend's house and you wanted to get a drink, pop, juice? Which one would you pick? Would you pick the short and round glass, or maybe the tall and thinner glass? Different containers for holding candy, or even a connection to science class here with the beakers. And then this is where you can use the online survey tool maybe to make the students give their guesses. I used Poll Everywhere literally last week for my classes for a review game. Instead of using dry erase boards like I normally do, students were able to use their handheld devices, and I think they really enjoyed that. They're engaged a little bit more. They're sending in their responses. It seems like for me, and most likely for them, that class went by very, very quickly versus the way I had been conducting reviews. Seemed to drag on a little bit. And here's the payoff. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Again, very visual with Dan. A lot of time-lapse photography, and these you can do this on your phone. iPhone has time-lapse photography now. And then Dan Hassel has, you know, a sequel and extension. This could be a homework assignment. It looks like very high-level questions. How many different ways could you make a new cylinder? Double your popcorn. What would require the least extra paper? A lot of more open-ended exploration. If you're working at Bloom's Taxonomy, a lot of higher-order thinking and exploration there, questions. And again, here are the ideas for those extensions. And then no matter how good a program is being used, the REACT method can be applied to gain the opportunity for students to increase their depth of knowledge and higher order thinking skills. And this relates to a training session that I had with our math teachers earlier, as far as trying to take your basic questions and make them a little bit more difficult for everyone involved. How can you get students a little bit more engaged? How can you sort of hit that higher order thinking? The post-test deals with more of the training, as far as how likely would you be to try this, what aspects were strongest and weakest, how could you compare this to other professional development that you've had. And then as far as how are you going to evaluate the people going through the training, the teachers, what they got out of it, I really want them to create their own lesson with the 3-act method. And I want to give them plenty of time to do this and come back to it. And I either want them to create a presentation using the Screencast-O-Matic software, explaining what they would do, the materials, their process, or even give a reflection document that would contain their goals, how the students enjoyed the lessons, what did they learn, what issues, would they do this again. So I was thinking like one or the other. I really wanted to be in control of it. I really wanted them to create something they could use for their classroom, if it was a lesson, and sort of I took the ideas from the classes I've had with Dr. Romano as far as like creating something that's project based, that they could use in their classroom. If they're going to teach that lesson anyways, what ways can we make that lesson better? Well, I hope you enjoyed my presentation about 3-act math, and I'm very interested in hearing your feedback and what changes I can make to improve and enhance this lesson.